This video is a review for Lab 6 about lactose intolerance and evolution. There's a video that you need to watch. It's lactose intolerance, it's HHMI. It is under Lab 6 in the folder Lab 6 in the Blackboard thing. You need to watch that first. It gives you an idea and it gives you the process in which lactose intolerance evolved and so on. So you need to make sure you watch that. Then after that, this is a case study, and you're going to be just reading this. These are scientists talking about why some are lactose intolerant, some are not. You want to pay attention to their names in the sense that where they're from in the world, because that's going to play a role later on. They're then going to show you this map. This map gives you an idea of the percentage of people that are lactose tolerant or lactose intolerant. And then what you're going to do is you're going to quantify those numbers. And what quantify means, it means to put it into numbers. And then you're going to graph the information from that map. Now, there's a couple ways you can do this. One, you can just print off one of the pieces of graph paper from the lab information folder and just redo this graph. Obviously use the same axis and so on, and then draw the bar graph and then take a picture or scan it and then put it into this lab at the end. Or you could print this off, do everything on here and make it a PDF and give me then download the whole thing or submit the whole thing. But it'd probably be easier just for you to redo this graph on graph paper, do the graph accurately, take a picture, scan it, and then put it at the end of this lab, and I'll show you where that is later on. Then here's just a continuation of their discussion, going a little bit into the biochemistry. Again, keeping it simple. It's going to show you a picture of lactose, which is a sugar. When it ends in OSE, it's a sugar. And there's an enzyme called lactase. Enzymes many times end in ASE. What an enzyme does, it takes a molecule and it breaks it into smaller molecules. So lactase is going to break lactose into two smaller sugars, glucose and galactose. If there are questions in here that you're not sure of, either look it up in the book or online. Again, they are pretty basic. Monosaccharide, disaccharide, that should not be difficult for you to find. Again, watching the video is going to help you with some of these questions. And again, their discussion continues. And then they're going to give you some numbers, and these numbers will make more sense after you've watched the video and after you have watched or read all of this. You're then going to do another graph. And again, what I would recommend is that you just print off a piece of the graph paper, just copy this graph, and then they've already graphed Bjorn for you. Just put those numbers in there and then just continue on and do graphs for the rest of the people. So you'll be graphing their blood glucose levels over time, okay, over time. So again, you can just remake this graph, fill in, make a nice line graph, go back and make sure you remember how to do more than one line on a graph, and then I'll show you where you can insert that at the end of this. Okay, so then you're going to answer more questions. And then what we're going to look at, or what you're going to look at, is you're going to look at why did lactase persistent? Why in some people does the enzyme lactase continue to work? And why, how did that evolve? How was that, why was that passed down from generation to generation when you're from a certain part of the world, but not when you're from others? So what you're going to have to do, it goes through this, you're going to get beans, and that was on the list of things you needed for lab equipment, uncooked beans, white beans, red beans, and then cups for this, and then a coin. And you're actually going to go through an exercise that's going to mimic genetics over generations. And so you're just going to follow the instructions, and I want you to note here that you're going to need to take a selfie, or someone else can take it, a picture of you that includes you, the beans, and the correctly labeled cups, and you're going to put that picture at the end. And then basically you're just going to pick out two beans, which mimics getting two genes. And depending on the coin flip, going to determine whether those genes, that person survives or doesn't survive, which means do those genes survive or not survive. And you're going to look at the percentage of genes of the lactase persistent that goes on from generation to generation. So make sure you read this, right? So if you pick two beans, it's based on the beans you pick, which is the genes, and it's based on the coin flip, which tells you whether there's a famine or not. Okay? And those two things, the combination, are going to determine whether the genes survive or whether that person would die and those genes would die. You're going to go through two generations of people, okay, two generations of people, and you're going to record the percentages. So the first time, let me back up a little, the first time through this, you're going to be doing this in an area of Northern Europe where there are cows, which after watching the video, that should make sense. Then you're going to do it the second time where you're now in Asia where they have no cows. So what's going to happen is there can be a difference here in what occurs. Okay, and what occurs. So the criteria for whether they die or live is going to differ in this area as opposed to when you're doing it up here. Okay, so read these carefully. Read these carefully. Take your time, go through it, and then it should make sense. But don't think that these right here, who lives and dies here and what genes survive, is not the same as who lives and dies and what genes go on and don't go on down here. And then you're going to look at your data and you're going to determine why you got the results that you did. So you're going to create a line graph. Okay. Create a line graph that's going to have data from both scenarios. So there's going to be two lines on it, one for where you have cows in Northern Europe and one from Asia where you don't. You're going to again create the graph on a piece of graph paper, take a picture, scan it, insert it here. Then you're going to interpret the graph. That's going to be the key part. You need to be able to tell me what the graph is telling you, what the exercise taught you about the persistence of this lactase gene over generations. So any other graph that you did from above that you did on a separate piece of graph paper, you can insert it here so I can scroll down and see it, and then you're going to insert your selfie here. Okay, so again, if you have any questions with it from this, just let me know. And again, I will see you soon in the next lab.